Welcome to the Only Friends Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Issac Wilkes, and with me today is returning guest, Noah Domangue from Fanatic Sports.
Yeah, had so much fun the last time, had to come back for more.
So today is a very special episode, near and dear to Noah's heart and very near and dear to mine as well. Today is our very late World Series preview episode. So we'll be recapping games 1 and 2 and getting ready for the rest of the series. Let's go jump right in. What did you think? What were your predictions coming into the series?
So coming in, I wrote like a preview blog, and my big prediction for the series was Rays in 7.
Right.
Now, being 100% transparent, I don't know how much I believe that. Because, obviously, I think the Dodgers were the better team.
Yeah.
But coming in, I thought two things were going to happen. One, Kershaw's back was bothering him. Right. So he was one of my X factors in it, saying, if Kershaw's healthy and Kershaw pitches like Kershaw, then I think the Dodgers are going to win.
Right.
He showed up game 1 and did exactly that. And then my second thing was Kevin Cash, the manager of the Rays, one of the best managers in baseball, one of the best managers I've ever seen. Dave Roberts of the Dodgers is just not. And I thought that would be the difference maker in this, and I thought that's why the Rays would be able to squeeze it out. But I do think the Dodgers are a better team.
Okay. And so it's similar. I feel similarly. I do think the Dodgers are a better team. I actually picked the Dodgers to win in 6 games because I did believe that, if Kershaw's a healthy pitcher, I think that he ultimately he can help, win them a few games down the line. Right. And I think that the Dodgers have a good enough bullpen, that they can handle, an offensive attack, especially with the Rays being
not so great.
so not great this postseason.
Extremely mediocre overall, and they've been struggling this postseason.
And I said that, and that made me realize, if the Dodgers aren't, the Dodgers don't have to have the perfect pitching staff to beat these Rays.
Exactly.
It's not like if you're facing a team with a stronger lineup that's been more consistent. They just haven't been. They lucked into a few wins here and there and had some things go their way. So ultimately they're here. But I felt like Dodgers in 6 because their pitching could probably carry them through, and I think they have a better offensive attack.
Yeah, I think
which gives them a better shot.
Right. The Rays aren't here because of their offense. They're here because they have one of the best starting staffs and one of the best bullpens in baseball. And I think, on top of that, they're one of the most analytically inclined teams. So they're very, very, very smart. They shift extremely well. It always seems like they know exactly where the ball's going. Against the Astros, they would hit the ball a lot, really hard, and always be right at somebody, easy out, one down. And it was just always like that. And then as we saw in the first 2 games, they started shifting on Justin Turner, the third baseman for the Dodgers, and they started having 4 outfielders playing and only 3 infielders, and the announcers were having a fit. And then, if I remember correctly, Justin Turner didn't do. I need to go back and look at the stats, but he didn't really do anything, especially in the second game.
Nothing super notable.
Right.
For sure.
I think he hit a double in the second game, but that doesn't make a difference with you having 3 infielders.
Right.
It ended up making a difference.
Right.
But it's very interesting the way they approach the game. They say, hey, this guy does the ball on the ground a lot. He strikes out a lot, and he hits fly balls a lot because he's the launch angle guy. So he says, okay, what is fly balls? We're going to put more outfielders.
Right. So, and I think that, like you said, that makes a big difference whenever you can scheme around what a player's doing versus saying, I'm going to stick my traditional defense out and hope it can hold.
Right.
And I think that got the Rays this far, but I look at that Dodgers team and I say, I think they can figure it out, and I think that if I'm asking the Rays to go, to win 4 games without pitching, without offense, I don't see it.
Dude, definitely. And that's one of the beauties of the 7-game series, right? It's very, very, very rarely is the lesser team going to win in a 7-game series because it is so hard to beat somebody 4 times in 7 games.
Exactly. If you're not there, you're not there.
Yeah, the Dodger lineup, dude, is just so deep, 1 through 9.
Right.
You have, and obviously they're more star-studded. You have the Mookie Betts, you have Cody Bellinger, you have Kershaw, you have Walker Buehler, you have all these big-time names, former MVP, Cy Young awards, and then you look at the Rays, and they're Well, they have a Cy Young Award winner, Blake Snell.
Yeah.
And then besides that, Brandon Lau made an All-Star game. Austin Meadows, I think, made an All-Star game. But everybody else is really put together.
It's almost a Moneyball situation where you put a lot of nobodies on the team to fill holes. And, I mean, ultimately the A's didn't wind up, winning the pennant as often as they wanted.
Did you by chance see the stat that said the Rays this season spent $28 million in payroll, and the Dodgers spent, I want to say, $25 million in signing bonuses alone this season? And that the Dodgers have 4 times the amount of payroll that the Rays do, and yet they're on the same stage playing.
Right. That tells you that, good front office management can definitely make the difference in the season.
Well, as a Red Sox fan, the guy who built all that, Chaim Bloom, is now in charge of the Red Sox. So I'm ecstatic. I'm like, I'm watching their bullpen. I'm watching their staff, just all these random 6'8" monsters that throw 98 out of the bullpen. I was like, okay, find us some of those. We'll be set, Chaim.
I mean, and he's the dude to do it.
Right.
He's the dude. I look at the team he's built in Tampa, and I say, this is the same Tampa team that, months ago they had all those coronavirus cases, and we're wondering, like, should they even be playing baseball? Now they're here, and you're like, oh.
Talking about the Marlins?
That was the Marlins.
That was the Marlins. Yeah. I mean, they might have had cases before we really started to know about it, because they didn't report anything before.
That's true.
But yeah, the Marlins strip club stories.
Guys, don't go to strip clubs.
Dude, kids, we yield at yield signs, and we don't go to strip clubs.
No strip
That's our 2 big rules. But yeah, still the Rays, nobody at the beginning of the season expected them to be here because they were in the same division as the Yankees.
Right.
And everybody just expected, oh my gosh, the Yankees were so close last year. They've been so close the last few years. And then they had Garrett Cole.
Right.
One of the best pitchers, second best pitcher in baseball.
Right.
And they fall right flat on their face to the Rays.
And this has been the story for the last few years. I remember them adding Giancarlo Stanton and saying, we added Giancarlo. This is a World Series team.
And then they lost to the Red Sox in the division series.
And then, it feels like every year now for the Yankees, they add some splash player, or every other year, they add some splash player. And then you lose to the Red Sox.
Yeah.
You lose to the Rays.
You lose to the Astros.
You lose to the Astros.
Yeah.
And I don't know what New York's going to do about that. I think they might to find them a front office guy who can handle that.
This is the crazy thing now. This would have been the year for them to do it because what's the big problem with the Yankees? Aaron Judge can't stay healthy.
Exactly.
Stanley can't stay healthy. Well, we got a 60-game season.
Right.
And we still can't stay healthy for 60 games. We can't go out there and win. They wouldn't have them and the Astros both would have missed the playoffs this year if it would have been the traditional 5 teams.
Right.
The 2 teams in the ALCS last year would have missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
And
it comes from not properly conditioning bodies to withstand long stands.
Right.
Not being able to do 60, 70 games, at a time when you need them, especially, late in the year when you're trying to make your October push.
Yeah.
You have to be healthy. I always say the best ability is availability.
Yep.
And that has been the biggest stain on the Yankees for at least the last 4 years, but probably the last decade, is they cannot be available in those moments where you need them to shine.
Well, the Yankees just straight up aren't the Yankees anymore.
Right.
They've won 1 World Series in the last 20 years.
And
since 9/11, the Yankees have won 1 World Series.
Which
2009.
It's so disheartening.
It's heartening for me. It makes me happy as a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, I know. And as a Yankee fan, my dad grew up in New York, so I'm a Yankee fan by blood.
It's
blood
not your fault.
transfusion.
Yeah, I forgive you.
I can't do anything about that. But being a Yankee fan, you think 26 rings, 27 rings.
Mm-hmm.
You think, okay, this it's been going on long enough where there should be a system in place that at least every 5 years you get a ring.
Oh, exactly.
And you would expect that from most teams. Most teams built like the Yankees are built, where you constantly can get the all-star players. You can constantly get those.
There's no excuse for the Yankees, the Red Sox, Dodgers, Cardinals, like teams like that, they should always be competitive.
Right.
They should always be making deep playoff runs. And you can get your year off here and there.
Yeah.
Like there's gonna be years mixed in between where like stuff happens.
Right.
But for you not to win a World Series in the last 20 years,
Right.
like you can't still pride yourself on the whole we're so awesome 27 rings. Well, how many of those were you alive for?
Right. Like I was
Because
alive.
post 70s, I think they're at 7. So I mean, they won 20 rings before the 70s.
Most people alive.
Right.
Today.
Also, before the world got to
Right.
play in the World Series.
Exactly.
Which I've always had an argument with that. I've always thought that pre-color barrier breaking World Series shouldn't count as a World Series. It can count as like whatever championship. But like, if it was just a bunch of white Americans playing, you can't be the World Series.
Right,
The world wasn't playing.
There was no world. Yeah.
Right. And like, that's not even me as like a Yankee hater type thing. That's just like, because Red Sox won, I want to say 4 before that.
Exactly.
And like, that'd be giving up 4. But I mean, like, it's the truth.
I think that, to your point, you don't ignore history with stuff like that.
Right.
You don't decide,
That's the problem.
conveniently when we do and don't include race. And so I think that you're probably right when you look at, how diverse baseball is today, not just with black people in it, but,
Hispanics run the game.
Right.
Like, and it's not even like the NBA now, the NFL now, they're predominantly African American.
Right.
But baseball is such a mixed pot of white,
Puerto Ricans,
Yeah.
Dominican Republic. You see people from all over,
Yeah.
and Japanese people.
Yeah, Japanese, Korean.
Like you just see it everywhere. Where baseball has that diversity that you can't say, oh, this is this race's sport. Baseball is the true world game right now outside of soccer.
Right.
Which literally is played in the world. Baseball. I have issues.
Football. No, they got issues with us. Going soccer. That's the real issues.
I mean, you're right. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. That taking that world aspect to it is important when talking about legacy. And New York's legacy, frankly, is way weaker. When you use the word world accurately and properly,
Exactly.
way weaker. And I think that ultimately that is starting to catch up with them. That you did a lot pre-color barrier, and so we lump a lot of that in. We give a lot of credit to it. We give a lot of juice to it. Even,
Yeah, back when there was like 12 teams.
Right, and we give so much juice to it, and we say, and we go, we had the best hitter to ever hit, and things like that.
Yeah.
And I just think that there has to be a level of honesty with ourselves as sports fans, where we say, the Yankees have not produced, and we need to say something. And I think that it's not just the Yankees that have that issue. There's a few teams in baseball. The Cardinals,
Dodgers.
I think, are another. The Dodgers.
The Dodgers haven't won a World Series since 1988.
Right. Like, I think as fans, that's our duty.
Yeah.
Our duty as fans, and we're both relatively new to sports media, but as media people, I agree even more. We have to start making that stand and holding franchises accountable.
Yeah.
And you see it a lot in football where they've given the Patriots that sort of, we had Tom Brady and the Patriots, 6 rings, and so they
Tom
give
Brady's
a
not
lot
on the Patriots anymore.
He's no longer there. That is true.
That's a whole new era over there.
And now they're identityless because their identity was pinned on 6 rings, and now they're having to hold Bill Belichick accountable, where they hadn't before.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a revolution when that can start happening around sports, where we start to say, no, our franchise deserves better than this. Then you'll start to see change.
I mean, it's not Belichick's fault whatsoever.
No, it's not. Frankly, it's just the fact that you had a big team put together, and in 2 years you lost 5 of the starters, 6 of the starters. That happens.
I mean, it's that Patriots team even last year that wasn't that good.
I agree.
Their record was better than what they were. I think the Packers as well. Their records showed that they're better than what they really were. And as we saw, they lost to Miami week 17 and then lost a first round bye, and they got bounced by Derrick Henry in the first round. But yeah, anyways, back to baseball. Who is your World Series MVP coming into the series? You say you had the Dodgers, so I'm gonna assume it was one of the Dodgers players.
I did not pick an MVP.
Okay. Bold.
Only because I hadn't made the decision prior to watching, and frankly, I've been busy, so I haven't watched as much baseball as I've liked the last 2 nights. But frankly, I wanted to see what kind of offense the Dodgers were going to show.
Right.
I wanted to see if we were going to show, that splashy, try to go deep a lot, or if we were going to, or if they were going to, excuse me, not we, they. You can tell I'm rooting for the Dodgers. Or if they were going to take a more educated approach to it and, try to push balls to the infield and try to really, really make a difference that way. So I hadn't picked an MVP as of yet.
I should have done that because my World Series MVP was Tyler Glasnow, and he pitched Game 1, and my MVP candidate died on the mound. He gave up 6 runs in 4 innings.
Yeah.
Or 5 innings, 4 1/3. That's what it was. But that's how I started off that recap blog. I was like, Game 1 of the World Series is in the books, and my MVP pick is dead. It was tough. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So digging into the Game 1 game, I think we both agree that one of the big standouts was Mookie Betts in this game.
Yeah.
As a Red Sox fan, the Red Sox were catching a lot of flack on Twitter about trading him. Good.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you saw this, but Mookie became the first player to ever hit a home run, steal 2 bases, and steal 2 runs in a World Series game.
Oh,
and obviously, it's kind of a wonky stat.
Yeah.
It's still okay, he had a really good game.
Yeah.
But I think the most important stat out of that game. Are you familiar with the Steal a Base, Steal a Taco program?
Yes.
Taco Bell?
Yes, Taco Bell.
He is the first person to ever do it twice in the World Series.
Twice. Wow.
So, Mookie for president, right?
Right.
Get this man a cape.
Get him a cape. Get him the Oval Office.
Right.
And get him the launch codes.
Scratch that. He's Captain America now.
Oh. He's the president.
Chris Evans gave it up. He's just gonna take it from your boy. Yeah, it's Mookie all day. Marcus Lynn Betts, MLB. Marcus Lynn Betts. He deserves it.
I'm here for it. I'm announcing my support for candidate Mookie Betts.
I am voting for the Mookie Betts party.
I'm voting him.
And Vice President me. I'll sit there and fan him with leaves and feed him grapes.
I think every fan should every baseball fan, I don't care what team you like, every baseball fan just has to go and do an hour with the grape leaves.
Yeah.
Getting them fanned up. Because,
that's the tax exemption.
Yeah.
But I've had this opinion for a while. The stats back it up, but he's been the second best player in baseball since 2015, 2016, since his real first season.
Right.
And judging by WAR, it's Mike Trout, and then drop Mookie Betts, and then big drop, and then everybody else.
Right.
So he is the best among the mortals.
Right.
Because Mike Trout might go down as the greatest player of all time. So
he's
Mookie Betts is the best among mortal men, and he has been for a long time.
Right.
And I'm so happy he's getting his shine, and he's just great. Everything that he's ever done. He's so humble. He's a great guy. He works in the community. After one of the games in the 2018 postseason, when the Red Sox made their World Series run and ended up winning it. After one of the games, after one of the celebrations, to move on around,
right.
They had a ton of leftover food, and Mookie took all the food and went and find homeless people in New York.
And get them something to eat.
And gave them all something to eat. And that's just the guy he was. He didn't go out with camera crews. He didn't go out with people. He went by himself.
And just made sure it happened.
Yeah, he's just that's just the kind of guy he is. And I'm so happy to watch him succeed.
I would agree. It's not often you see that among athletes, genuinely. You see a lot of athletes do stuff
right
with camera crews and press conferences.
Yeah.
Specifically in basketball, you see it a ton, even more in football, I'd argue. But it's definitely refreshing to see that it wasn't Major League Baseball did this. It was Mookie Betts.
Mookie Betts and his posse.
Right.
No, it was just Mookie. It was
Just
Mookie being
Mookie.
Mookie.
Right.
And he strikes me as the type of guy that it's like, yo, I'm gonna do this. If you tell anyone, never happening again.
Right.
Like, and not even like in a mean way, but it's like,
just like I don't want that out there.
Right. And it's just, it feels so good to watch him compete and like do it on the highest days. Like, he looks like he's having so much fun. And like, he made some amazing plays against the Braves and that NLCS. And like, that's part of the reason why they're there. And those plays and like him performing so well is why the Dodgers brought him in.
Right.
Because 2016 they lose in the NLCS to the Cubs. 2017 they lose in Game 7 to Houston.
Right.
Obviously we know what happened with Houston now,
yeah.
but still they fell short. 2018 they get dusted by the Red Sox.
Right.
And 2019 they come in last year. World Series, the odds-on favorites. They were for 17, 18, and 19, and this year.
Right.
And they come in best record in baseball. No, they had 106 wins. The Astros had 107. So they had the best record in the NL. And I think it just beaten 5 games by the eventual World Series champion Nationals in the division round. Right. And the Nationals were a wild card team. Yeah. So then they say, okay, well, we fell short. What do we do? And they're like, let's go get the second best player in baseball.
Right. Which that is the natural next step.
Right. But I mean, he's proven now why you do it.
Right.
He's out there and you can tell he's the best player on the field for the team. Yeah. And it's just like so evident. And like, this is a team, the Dodgers, Cody Bellinger won the MVP last year in the National League. Right. And they still were like, no, he needs another outfielder to run with him. Someone's even better than him.
Right. Like, and that's the thing too about watching baseball when you have teams like this. Yeah. Where you're like, wow, that is a team that is having fun playing. Because like sometimes you look at people do their job and you realize it's their job, you know, like you see it a lot in football, you see it a lot in basketball, where you see people and you're like, oh, he's shooting because he has to shoot right now, or he's throwing the ball because he has to. It's his job right now. Yeah. And it's not that often that you see people have like genuine fun doing what they do. And Mookie's one of those guys when you see him playing. That team is one of those teams when you see them playing just as a whole, you're like, wow, they're having fun playing baseball. Right. And they just happen to be getting paid millions of dollars to do it.
Mookie's contract, that was... Oof. They are lucky COVID hit because he does not sign the contract. He would have made more money if COVID doesn't hit.
So much more money.
But like he was asking the Red Sox for 12 years, $420. Right. And the Red Sox responded with 12 years, $300. And he said, yeah, you can miss me with that because I'm going to get $400 in open market. Right. And then he signed with the Dodgers for $360. Right. And then as a Red Sox fan, the Red Sox trade him, get rid of him, and then try to make him look like the bad guy on the way out. Well, then he goes to the Dodgers and he instantly signs for $360. That's negotiating. Red Sox, if you offer $300 and he counters with $420, meet in the middle, and then he's a Red Sox for life. Now I have to watch this guy walk into the Hall of Fame in 2 decades with LAD across his head.
He's walking in.
He's going as a Dodger. He's gonna have 13 seasons as a Dodger, and I have to watch my favorite player since he came up in 2014. And I have to see him be inducted as a Dodger. Well, like 80 years from now, my grandkids are gonna be like, "Papa, did you see Mookie Betts play for the Red Sox?" I'm like, "Yes, sir, I did." Why did they get rid of him? Well, you see, in my day, we had something called the luxury tax, and you got penalized for spending just too much money.
I'm sorry. There's no way on this earth I don't make a deal. I'll probably offer him $380. If I'm them, he wants $420. Take $380, please, and let's get this deal done. Be a Red Sox. But the Yankee fan in me is so happy that happened.
Oh yeah, I don't blame you. He one of the things the Red Sox fans keep pointing to talk about. Oh, he had lack of success in the postseason. He didn't dominate in the postseason. Well, what's happening now?
World Series.
He's the best player in the playoffs.
Stole 2 bases.
I mean, I guess Corey Seager won NLCS MVP because he was raking. But I mean, still, like, without Mookie Betts, Corey Seager doesn't get those opportunities to rake in those later games because Mookie Betts is diving into the wall and making shoestring catches off the ground and doubling people up. Like, he does every part of the game so well. He's a great base runner. He's a great defender, and then he rakes. And like, it's just he he's what you want your kid to become as a ball player.
Oh, yeah.
Because he shows up to work, he
Mm-hmm.
puts his head down, he works hard, he excels in all aspects of the game, and then on top of that, he's gonna sit there and he's gonna have fun.
And he's a humble guy on top of it.
Yep.
Because it's easy to be the second best player in baseball and then tell everybody.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just go out and say, well, my name is Mookie Betts. I'm better than you at everything you're ever going to do in your life, and leave me alone. It's easy to do that.
Yeah.
But he instead takes the, in my opinion, harder path to go out and be a generous, kind person who, you know, makes time for teammates and makes time for the community. And I wonder now how he has time both for the community and to be better than every other living human at baseball. Like, it blows my mind, honestly. Like,
Yeah, since Mike Trout's a demigod.
yeah, well, that's different. He can bend time and do it.
Right. Yeah. No, he's
Because
definitely
he's-
got, like, you ever seen Click? Whenever they could pause
Yeah.
time with their remote? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he has. But, yeah, we can dig into the actual game. So, Dodgers win game 1. 8-3, I believe, was the final score.
Yeah.
And, honestly, I was most impressed with Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah.
He just showed up and put the team on his back spasmed back, and said, "Hop on, boys, we're winning this ball game." And went
Right.
6 innings, 1 run, baseball.
Right. And you look at him, pitch, and you say, you know, there's certain magic to a player that you know for a fact is hurting, you know for a fact is fatigued, and you know for a fact probably needs another week and a half of rest before he pitches again. Say, you know what, no, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to pitch this game and I'm going to throw 6 innings and allow 1 run. Like,
Yeah.
that's just the gusto it takes, the balls that takes even to go up there. And I've had like very mild back injuries in my life and been like
It's awful.
out for a month. Like not doing anything for a month.
Yeah, stay mummified for a month.
Yeah. So like for him to be like, oh, my back is spasming, I'm gonna go pitch 6 innings.
Yeah.
And pitch 6 really good innings. You know,
That
like
slider, oh my goodness.
I mean,
His slider, he was dotting his slider all night. He caused 22 swing and misses out of his 98 pitches. 14 of those 22 swing and misses were sliders. Like, and that's not even like his go-to, because like his signature is like his curveball,
Right.
and then it would probably be his changeup, and then his slider.
Right.
Like, he went with his 4th best pitch and was getting swing and misses. And on a given night, if your 4th best pitch is getting swing and misses, you're gonna be successful,
Right.
and that's the bottom line.
And ultimately, that's why I think that's why the Dodgers are the easy pick to say, well, I'm going to favor them to win this series.
Right.
Because you look at pitching like that and you say, you know, how for the Rays, who have not hit anything close to a baseball this postseason.
Randy Rosarena, that's it.
Yeah.
He's been crushing the ball like a madman. But I mean, besides him, like, he is single-handedly scoring all the runs for the Rays right now.
And I
Just
don't
coming out
see
of
how
nowhere.
I mean, in fairness, they sustained it through, 3 other postseason series.
Yeah.
But I don't see them continuing that trend with Mookie Betts in the outfield, frankly.
Yeah, Mookie's nasty.
I mean-
Okay. We gotta move on from Mookie. He's so good.
No, but I mean, I just look at that Dodgers team and I say, look at the pitching, look at, in game 1 specifically, look at that pitching, and look at that heart in that team. Look at Mookie, still 2 bases, and you say, how are they not going to win this series?
Yeah. They look like, they didn't even look like they were struggling. They look they look like men on a mission. It's like, all right, let's go. We did what we were supposed to do. Let's keep it rolling. And then they didn't keep it rolling. Game 2 rolls around.
Right.
Tampa Bay comes back and says, because everybody's saying, oh, Tampa, they don't belong here. Tampa doesn't belong here. We're gonna Dodgers in 4. Like, the series is over. And Blake Snell comes out. No. Goes. He pitches a no-hitter until the 5th inning.
Right.
Brandon Lau, second batter of the game, hits a home run. And then again, his next at-bat. And the Rays were up 5-0 extremely early.
You're all of a sudden looking at it and you're saying, well, I know Mookie's on that other team, but maybe Noah's a prophet and the Rays are going to win.
Yeah.
And they may win in 5 games. And
dude, I hope this goes 7 so bad.
I agree. I'd like to see this be a 7-game series.
Mainly because it's less time I have to live in my life without watching a baseball game.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But also, I think that, I don't know, those are two teams that, especially once because I think that they both sort of had a splash game, and I think they'll sort of start to balance out, and we'll start to see more competitive games.
Definitely.
Once you start to see more competitive baseball from both of them, sort of equal out.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be one of the better series in the last decade. That we look back at it and say, oh,
that's saying something too,
right.
because we've had 16, 17, and 19 were all 7-game series.
Mm-hmm.
So that's saying something.
Right.
If this is the one.
And I say that one fully knowing that those 3 series went 7 games. But I say that also knowing that there's the big asterisk on any 2020 championship because of COVID. You say, well, would this team have done this if they had to play 60 more games?
I don't know if the Rays pitching sustains 162 because of the amount of bullpen games that they throw.
Right.
Maybe they do, but as we've seen in the past, the Rays, as time goes on, the pitchers get more fatigued, and obviously because they're throwing more innings than anyone else in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're getting into series, and you're having Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, and Charlie Morton all pitching, and you're like, whoa, I thought this was the bullpen team.
Right.
They got 3 legit frontline starters.
Those are good starters,
Yeah, and it's just, and then you look at their bats, you're like, okay, they're not anything special, and then you go put up 5 runs in 3 innings against the Dodgers. You're like, whoa, who is that? Who is Brandon? Who is Joey Wendell? Who are these guys?
I legitimately had to look him up.
Joey Wendell.
I had to look. I was like, who? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say that Game 2 surprised me in that I thought the Dodgers were going to be way less flat than they were.
Yeah.
They came out and they seemed to be flat. It seemed like they were missing that spark or that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that.
And the Rays came out like their hair was on fire.
Right.
They came out swinging, literally, swinging the bats and swinging. They made a statement. Both games so far, both teams so far has made a statement game, and kind of the theme of the series, there's no such thing as keeping momentum between games, because the Dodgers were down 3-1, they came back.
Mm-hmm.
The Rays were up 3-0 against the Astros, and Astros forced to Game 7.
Right.
It's obviously the momentum from game to game this series has been wonky.
It's all because you're playing in bubble environments and COVID testing.
No home games.
Yeah. You don't have hardly any crowds. These COVID crowds are tiny.
If Game 2 happens in LA in front of a sold out crowd and the Rays are down 1-0 after a blowout, I don't know if the Dodgers come out that flat.
No, because that home crowd is picking them up, and there's excitement in the air, and there is just a different air in that on that field. There's nothing beating playing a sold out Dodger crowd. You think about those. Yeah,
whenever they show up in the third inning.
Well, it's LA, so they're stuck on 3 or 5.
Right.
When they finally get there.
Whenever they get there.
After
they take their Instagram picture. So around the 5th inning?
5th inning. By the time you're at 7th inning stretch.
Yeah. They'll be ready to go home.
You're talking prime baseball for.
Dodgers fans are gonna hate this one.
Inning and terrible. And I'm rooting for the Dodgers, and y'all are still gonna hate it, and that's fine. But you look at it and you say, that's where COVID, because you're like, oh, well, there's still baseball teams and they're still playing baseball, so why would there be an asterisk? But that's where the asterisk comes in.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw some of the things in the NBA where you're like, oh, they won, but it's not the same as winning in front of a crowd with 60,000 cheering fans.
And you can't convince me that a 60-game season is the same as a 162.
No, it's not.
Because baseball's 162 for a reason, because it weeds out the frauds.
Mm-hmm.
How we were talking earlier, we were saying we didn't believe that the Patriots were as good as their record showed.
Right.
If they play an additional 2 or 3 times the games, that might come about.
Right.
And we'll see a lot with baseball. Teams will start off super slow, the Nationals last year started off 19-31,
right.
and then they won the World Series,
right.
And then you have teams start off blazing hot, and then they'll miss the playoffs.
Exactly.
The Red Sox in 2011 had the best record in baseball going into August, and then they ended up missing the playoffs
because playing elongated seasons like that, and especially baseball's even more than basketball.
Yeah.
Playing 162 games, I think not only do you weed out who doesn't belong, but you find out who who has the real endurance.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
And the mental side.
Right.
Of like wanting to show up every day.
Right. Because I think about, you know, pitchers less so because, you know, you go on 3-4 game rotations at times and stuff. So, like, you get breaks in between. But I think about, you know, you go on, you know, 10, 12 home away game stretches, and you have to, like, be away from your family. And talk about doing that 4 or 5 times a year. Yeah. Like, those kinds of stresses are the stresses that show you who's really in baseball to, you know, who's there for the love of the game.
Yeah, I mean,
and who's there because it's a cool job to have.
Think about when teams like the Mariners have to go play an East Coast series, so they got to fast forward 3 hours of their body internal clock to where they're waking up in the morning for a noon game. They might have to be at the park at 8, and it's their bodies feel like it's 5 a.m. And then they have to go play 3 in Tampa. Then they got to go up to the Nationals and play 4. And then they got to go up to the Yankees and play 4. And then they got to go to Boston and play 3. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a 14-game East Coast road trip. Like, you spend 2 weeks away from home, and you finally go home. Like, as a player, like, I don't know how you would do that. It's sleeping in a different bed every night.
Every night. And the thing is, travel can be grueling.
Yeah.
You know, like, I travel for my regular job. And just driving, you know, an hour and something to work a few days a week, I get home and I'm like drained. I'm done for when I get home on Saturday, I don't do anything until Monday morning because I need that mental break because I can't handle going an hour and a half away from home and coming to my own bed every night.
Right.
So imagine going, you know, 14, you know, 18 games. You're in blank and blank hotel for 2 days, and then you're in the next blank and blank hotel for 2 days.
And obviously super nice hotels, but at the end of the day, it's not home.
It's not home. And, you know, Zoom calls, as we've all learned in 2020, FaceTiming with your family is great, but it is nothing like being around them, you know? Like, having to be separated and talking to people by Zoom is just...
And then you add in the fact, they couldn't see their families.
Right.
Like, their wives and their kids, like, the players live for whenever they get a day off and get to go home, or get to go home after a game that ends at 11 and just go to sleep next to their wife.
Right.
Like that's who keeps them sane. That's the people that keep pushing them. That's the people who surprise them on a road trip and say, like, surprise, like, we're here to support you.
Right.
And, like, obviously there's single guys, there's young guys, there's people who aren't family people. But, like, for, like, those big time, like, family people, like, Mookie Betts has a toddler and, like, a baby. And his wife's super close. Like, she was always at every game. Like, he didn't get to see her since June.
Right.
Like, I don't know how he got up every single game and played and dominated. Like, he's gonna finish top 3 in the MVP. Right.
Like, you look at that and you say, man, what do you have to do? How do you fix a season like that? You know, like, how do you, like, what does your body do? Like, I think that if you take the Rays and you take the Dodgers and you tell them, okay, go back to, what was it, June 18th they started playing or something like that?
I think that's when they went practice. I think the 23rd, I want to say, was the Yankees Nationals primetime game.
Yeah. So the week of the 20th, right?
Yeah.
You go back to the week of the 20th and you think, like, okay, what were you doing for 3 weeks leading up to that? You found out a decision was going to be made. You found out you're going to be playing.
Super last minute.
And then you find out, like, you kind of can't go home.
Yeah.
And, like, oh, the playoffs are going to be worse.
And everyone's like, oh, they had the opportunity to opt out. Oh, they got to opt out and make, what, $150,000?
Right. And
somebody like Mookie who makes 30-something million a year.
Right.
Like, obviously, he's made so much money in his career. He probably, that doesn't make a difference for him if he wanted to stay home bad enough.
Right.
But as a man, you feel a responsibility to provide for your family.
I mean, ultimately, people forget opting out is opting out of your job, and most people would not choose to opt out of their job.
Oh, unless you're a star player, if you opt out, there's a chance there's no work for you.
Exactly.
Like, if you're a young guy, if you're a fringe guy on the roster, and, like, you're like, hey, like, there's gonna be a spot for you this year, you might see, like, a good bit of playing time. If you start swinging well, you might become a starter. Right. And then if you sit out that year, if you opt out, regardless ethically if it's right or not, like, it sucks. Like, that shouldn't happen. Right. But you can get Wally pipped. Right. Like, Luke Gehrig might come along and take your job the one day you take off.
Just in that blank where you're not expecting it. Right. Boom. This thing that you've prepared your whole life for. Yeah. This thing that you've worked hard for. This thing that you slept in pouring motel rooms and everything else playing minor league. They come up here, and then the first thing happens, COVID. I think about like those guys who are in year 2, year 3,
just adjusting finally,
right.
like getting used to the league,
getting used to what playing 162 games a year looks and feels like on a body.
Yeah.
And as you're getting into that comfort, okay, boom, COVID hits. So now you don't know for 3 months. They know if there was going to be a season, let alone when, and things like that. Like just that stress and pressure on the team over a long game of time. I look at them now, and I look at the Dodgers now specifically, and I say, you look at the injuries they've taken, specifically with Kershaw's back, but other things like that, and just like the general fatigue you have to be feeling. Today, tonight is their rehab and resting and taking their travel day.
They played 60 games in less than 70 days.
Right, like you're talking a game a day with a week off in the middle somewhere. Like that's not.
Yeah, and you're not getting that week off.
Right.
You're getting like, hey, you get a random day off after 13 straight games.
Right.
Like.
And don't forget, you can't really go around your family like talking about because COVID's still a thing, even though you're
and then you might get a false positive because we're not going to use the good test like the NFL's doing.
Right.
We're going to use the spit test.
Right. Which is it's proven not as accurate. And that's another one of the big question marks now. But anyway,
back to the World Series.
Back to the World Series. You take all those distractions around them and you say, okay, who wins the series? And I say, when I measure it out, I think that's why I picked the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. And I think
the experience too.
Right.
I mean, they've been here before.
And I think that as we go through this series, I don't see us having that many flat Dodger games.
I don't think so either.
And I think that's why you say the Rays are really going to have to find their answer consistently in the batting order. Like you have to find those guys, especially 3, 4, 5, like in the middle of your lineup. And you have to say y'all have to hit well, and y'all have to be consistent here because we are playing the Dodgers, and Mookie Betts is in the outfield, and Issac is in the outfield, and we can't afford not to play well because like that's ultimately the issue with them is the Rays can absolutely beat the Dodgers.
Oh yeah.
If they can play well consistently over the next, hopefully.
And when you say play well, you're speaking of the bats, correct?
Bats, yes.
Okay, yeah,
Bats.
I agree. I
think defensively they do a very good job.
Yeah.
But you have to start finding offense. You have to find ways to get runs on the board. You have to find ways to get people on base because
that game is not going to stay 0-0 forever.
Right. And your pitchers can't do just well enough to keep you out of falling over the cliff. If there's nothing there holding you, pulling you back, then you'll stay teetering on that edge. And I think that if you're teetering on the edge and the Dodgers are just a little better, they push you over that edge. And you're just not ready for it.
I do think as a Dodgers fan, even last night, I'm not feeling terrible because the Dodgers really didn't play too well, and they still only lost 6-4.
Right.
And the Rays threw out their best starting pitcher, and the Dodgers had a bullpen game, and they only lost 6-4. So I think whoever wins Game 3 will win the series.
I agree.
Game 3, super important, as always, most Game 3s are, because you're looking at either someone going up 3-0 or 2-1.
Right.
And, like, the 2-1 is a big deal, as is 3-2.
Right.
The odd number games are always most important.
Right.
But, what's his face? Brandon Lau was one of my big X factors for the Rays coming in.
Right.
He's been the Rays' best player. He's their all-star. He's their big bat at the top of the order, batting second. And then he's been struggling so much in the playoffs. And I said, if the Rays are going to win, he has to show up.
Exactly.
And then he has 2 home runs. And I'm like, okay, well, the Rays are making a statement right now. It's 5-0 early on, and then it just kind of stopped. And, like, the Rays, like, they had a few chances. They couldn't drive in the runners. Like, they really had opportunities to bust the game open, but the Dodgers bullpen pretty much held them intact. And I think that's very encouraging as a Dodgers. Like, if I'm a Dodgers fan, I'm not nervous.
Yeah, you don't pull the fire alarm just yet.
Yeah, not yet. If you go down 3-1, I think so. Even if you lose tomorrow, I don't think it's still time to panic yet, because tomorrow's a great matchup. You have a couple guys, Walker Buehler. He has a 1.88 ERA in the postseason this year.
Right.
And as a career, as pitcher for the Dodgers, Walker Buehler, and his career postseason ERA is a 2.44.
Oh wow!
So like he consistently shows up in the postseason.
Right.
And then on the other hand, a Rays starter, Charlie Morton,
Mm-hmm.
you might remember him, pitched legendary games in 2017 run for the Astros.
Yeah.
His ERA this postseason is a sub-1. It's like a .57.
Wow.
So this guy, in 9 innings of work, is going to give up half a run. So in 2 complete games, he'll give up a run in those 2 games.
Right.
And then in his career, he has a 2.88 ERA.
Right.
So you're talking about 2 guys who consistently show up and shove in the postseason. Right. And we get to watch it unfold tomorrow, Friday night.
Yeah. And you see that matchup, right, is part of that magic I was talking about earlier, where you say you take those 2 pitchers and you take, you know, those franchises and, you know, how they've unfolded this year, and you say, you know, when do you see baseball like this in these conditions? When do you see any sports like this under these conditions?
In the COVID conditions?
Right, where you're like, everything seems to be tamped down, and like, I look at the basketball championship and I say it was good, don't get me wrong. But it was not what you expect. But somehow baseball has kept us the closest to normal we've felt in sports. At least in my opinion.
I think part of that is because baseball does not as much interaction with fans.
Yeah.
Obviously you'll have the toss a ball here or there, or you'll have the but like when you watch an NBA game,
right,
like the players sit directly next to the fans. And like so is baseball. I'm really contradicting myself. But like the fans,
I understand what you're
I feel like the fans don't play as big of a role like in football.
And I think too it helped that baseball didn't take itself super seriously, so you saw like the cutouts of people and stuff like that. And where basketball did the like, oh, we're gonna zoom people into it, to me it took away from it, because it's like, this isn't a full arena, this is screens around the court.
It also looked weird.
Yeah.
Like it was cool. My dad actually did one of the Pelicans games.
Right.
He because it was just like a drawing, like if they pulled your name, he did it.
Right.
And like even like seeing it all, it was cool, but it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then whenever they finally did start allowing people in, it's all family members. So then it makes me think of the meme when it's Westbrook like screaming at somebody like, "You like that?" And it's just like a baby like. It's just like somebody's wife that's sitting there like, I mean, I'm at Disney World.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. I kind of want them to lose. I'm ready for us to all go home.
And you take that tension in basketball that we saw, and football is better, in quotes, you know, but there's really no way to capture it quite the way baseball did, where baseball immediately, you know, made the jokes and, you know, had the mascots looking for fans and had the cutouts and had those things. And so it made you feel like, okay, baseball understands what's going on. Yeah. And obviously, you know, they wish you were here, but they're smart about not making it like, oh, we need to push fan attendance. And so I think that eased a lot of our minds, like, okay, baseball's not going to go overboard with this and not try to push for something that ultimately could hurt a lot of people. So, like, I think it eased our minds, and so it made watching baseball without fans normal. And I think that is like, it's not like a normal, like, oh, we need to see this every week, but like, okay, I can deal with this for now. Like, I understand the conditions, I can deal with this for now.
And then I think the cutouts there, obviously it's different than real fans, but like for the visual like aesthetic of like only showing that, as long as they didn't show like fly balls going into the empty stands, right? Like it was just like, okay, watching a baseball game.
Yeah, and I think that helps the watchability of it, which I think ups the excitement factor. Yeah, because
the baseball ratings all around was skyrocketed this season, and everybody, you can't say, well, it was the only sport on, because the NBA was on, NFL was on.
This is the first time that I want to say this is the first time since I believe the 80s or the 90s that you had hockey, football, baseball, and basketball all on at the same time. Yeah, you had all the major sports represented, and you had random soccer games going. And there was a tennis,
and golf, everything. Yeah, literally everything was going on.
Like, because the world kick-started all at the same time, so all the sports were like, we got to get going. Yeah. And somehow still baseball, like, you see the ratings numbers, and you know, people like to joke that baseball is the boring sport, and that's why nobody watches it. Yeah.
Well, baseball's dying. Well, according to the ratings, baseball
It's
is
just fine.
apparently it's a Frankenstein now.
Right.
It's a vampire. It came back from the
It's alive.
dead.
It's alive.
Yeah, it's a zombie. Like
Yeah.
it's doing the exact opposite of what everybody projected it to do. And obviously, I don't know how much truth of it in like is baseball is dying. I think one of the main reasons why baseball was up overall was number one, as a game we're starting to market ourselves more.
Mm-hmm.
The MLB the players are finally starting to call them out on the stupid stuff like uniform violations, not be able to post their own highlights. Like the MLB does let people post highlights.
Which is ridiculous.
Okay, so here's my question. First time you ever heard of Steph Curry, where'd you hear him from? You saw him on Instagram. You saw him on Twitter doing a cool crossover and hitting the three from the logo and then shimmying. And you're like, who is that?
Who's that? Yeah, who's that little light skinned kid?
Yeah, why they call them Splash Brothers? There's a second one?
There's two?
Yeah.
And then they look.
Yeah, like it was like
there's two.
that's what grows the game. Like what's gonna get more likes? A still shot picture of like a Dodger hat, or is it gonna be LeBron windmill dunking?
Right.
You know, and it goes both ways. Is a picture of a basketball gonna do better? Or is it Fernando Tatis Jr. piping a 3-0 fastball the other way and then throwing his bat and pimping it and saying like, yeah, let's go.
Let's go. And that you're talking about that personality that you see in other sports, specifically basketball, because I think football suffers from much the same issue.
As a helmet sport.
Like you have to do things not just to put faces out to say, oh, baseball has faces or football has faces, but also to say that these are people with personalities playing. Mm-hmm. These aren't square. These aren't robots we invented to play the game. Like, because I think that's a lot of times what we do. We try to go back to those 1930s, 1940s kind of ways of thinking and say, oh, this is a gentleman's game, and you need to be a gentleman. You have to.
You will not show up, fellow man. Well, me being excited that I just hit a baseball 450 isn't showing him up. If I'm celebrating with my dugout, that's not no disrespect to you. Now, if I'm taunting you, sure, we can meet halfway, 60 foot 6 inches. Right. But like, did you see the Marcelo Ozuna celebration when he hit the home run and he stopped halfway through the line and did a fake selfie with the dugout? Yeah, like that's awesome.
That's what you're looking for in sports. Ultimately that's what we're escaping to in sports. We're escaping to those moments where, as fans, we can go and celebrate with our team. Yeah. Granted, we're obviously not on the field celebrating when, our team raises a trophy, but that celebration, in your home where you scream so loud to go horse and all those different things. Like I think back to get off of baseball one more time. I think back to when the Saints won the Super Bowl in 2009, and I think like just those 3 weeks of consistent celebration. When we dominate the Cardinals, and I'm like, oh, this could be real.
This is real. Kurt Warner, and then Brett Favre,
and you're like, oh, the Brett Favre is almost football Jesus, like.
Yeah, and then you play second football Jesus, Peyton Manning. Mm-hmm. That's 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks that we beat in such a short time span. And granted, Warner and Favre back half their career, but Peyton, that was prime Peyton Manning.
That was prime, fully in control, almost calling his own plays, Peyton Manning. Yeah. And you look at that and you say, like, how do you encapsulate that feeling week to week? Yeah. And I think that's one place that baseball, and I think most sports like baseball, football, that's where we have to, because the Saints became so human to us, because, we see Drew with his kids at the celebration, and you say, oh, these are humans playing football. And I think with baseball, to get back to it, that's what we like to see. We like to see the human side of these people who we revere as we said about Mike Trout, are demigods. Yeah. We look at these people and you say, oh, they're
Mike Trout is a robot. Let's make that perfectly clear. This guy's hobby is weather. That is what he said at the All-Star game. He did a full interview talking about the forecast and if it was going to rain or not. But that's what he likes. And everybody's pushing a face baseball. You gotta be face baseball, and he's like, I'm cool. I don't want that. I want to show up. I want to play ball. Who should be the face of baseball? People like Mookie Betts. Mm-hmm. People like Fernando Tatis Jr. These are the people who are just electric to watch.
Just here to have fun.
And here's the thing: when Tatis hits a home run, he acts the same way that I do whenever I watch him. Because as a fan, if my favorite player hits a home run to go up 3-2, I'm running around saying, "Let's go!" I'm fist pumping, I'm jumping up and down, and he's doing it too. Then I'm excited. I'm like, "Yeah, look at him go!"
Right.
And then you're watching him, you're getting even more hype up. It gets the dugout into it. It gets the fans, most importantly, into it, and it just rejuvenates everything.
And it what it does is I think every celebration like that, just it adds a year of life to baseball, because that's one more kid who sees that and says, I want to feel like he feels.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go play baseball.
Yeah.
Like that's how every sport I got into. That's how.
Yeah.
Because there was no sport that I looked at on the surface and I was like, oh, that looks fun. Like football, I got into because like I saw these football players win Super Bowls and be excited, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be able to say I have those stats. I want to be able to do those things with that helmet. I want the experience is so important. Like it's not just the structure of a game that makes a game fun. It's the experience you have while you're playing it.
Yeah. So I ever told you like what really got me into baseball?
Oh,
so
go ahead and tell me.
my grandpa, I was at my grandpa's house, probably 5 years old. He was watching baseball, and I was just kind of like, 5 years old, you don't understand sports, especially not like the increment details of baseball.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, I'm like, Papa, like, we could change this. Like, I'm trying to watch something else. Like, and he's like, nah, like, you need to sit down. Like, you need to learn. Like, this is a thinking man's game. And I'm like, no. You know what he did? Instead of just yelling at me, he's like, no, you're gonna watch it. He goes, check this out. Pulls up Ken Griffey Jr. with his backwards hat, big old smile, and a couple gold chains. I'm like, that dude's cool. I'm gonna start wearing my hat like him. I want to play baseball now. I want to go hit off a tee. I want to go finish with a long follow through where the the tip of the bat's almost hitting my feet.
Right.
Like Ken Griffey Jr. was so cool, and the face of baseball conversation. He was never the best player in baseball when he played. That was Barry Bonds, but he was the face of baseball.
Right.
And like that's why like it doesn't have to be Mike Trout. Derek Jeter was never even close to the best player in baseball, but he was still the face.
And to go back to that storied franchise, that helps a lot. Like,
yes,
when
I agree.
When you see Derek Jeter in those pinstripes, you're like, oh, he's a Yankee, and he is having so much fun being a Yankee.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's a reason why everybody calls him the captain.
Right.
Not just the Yankees players, every single person in the sport.
Right. Everybody who's been around baseball.
Yeah.
And you just feel good about watching it. You feel good about seeing sports like that.
To kind of wrap up, because I know we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah.
Who you got game 3?
I'm going to very shyly and very coyly pick the Dodgers. And I'm going to say that even though...
Is it wrong to say whoever wins this game wins the series?
I think it's a rush to judgment.
Okay.
I think that if the Rays win Game 3, we go to 7 games, and then
I agree.
We say, okay, put your best up. We'll put our best up, and we see. And I think that the Dodgers' best is a little better. And
I think Kershaw probably goes Game 7 too.
Right. And I think that if we see the Dodgers win tomorrow night, then we say this is probably their series. I think that the path for the Rays winning is not. It's not predicated on winning tomorrow. It's predicated on games 4 and 5 more than anything.
Because that's part of finding the consistency.
Right.
Like, show me that those bats can wake up and stay alive and stay awake and alert for those 3-4 game stretch. And even if you lose, even if you lose Marcus Walker Buehler, if you can put up 5 runs on 9 hits, as a Rays fan, you still got to say, okay, we still got a shot.
Right.
And that's all you can ask as a sports
And I think
fan.
that's not predicated on them winning. Whereas for the Dodgers, I think that if they lose tomorrow, you have to go and start doing some soul searching.
Yeah, definitely.
And you have to say, okay, guys, we need this. At very least, we need this to go 7 games.
As a Dodgers player, though, like the way that these series have been ending for them all these last seasons, if they go out and lose a couple games in a row, like me speaking personally as a human, I would assume they would be like, are we gonna do this again?
Right.
Like, really? And it's
that has to light a fire.
Right. Like that's just as part of being human.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would have to assume that they're like, are we really gonna let this happen again to the Rays?
Exactly. And you start to, and I think then, I don't say you panic, but I think then you start to ask questions. Yeah. Where does our heart lie? And what do we want our legacy to be?
So you're sticking Dodgers in 6?
I'm gonna stick with Dodgers in 6 for now.
Okay.
Only because I'm confident in Mookie Betts. I mean, he might as well be Jesus, because my faith is in him.
Yeah.
No, but more than that, I think that they're a well put together team, and I think that the Rays are missing just, I don't know what that something is. They're missing just something from a championship. Like, I think they're missing that one ingredient.
Okay.
And
I
so
think they're a year early.
yeah, like
Problem is, I don't know if they're gonna go out and suspend and get that guy. I'm sticking Rays in 7,
okay.
and kind of glad I'm not winning MVP. But yeah, that's still gonna be my pick.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's fun baseball talk.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
We gotta do this again. Like, I assume we can count on you for the MLB preview show.
I'll always be here to talk some MLB.